Occupation exposure causing injuries. What is it? What do we need to know? Well, let's go ahead and bring in from Injury Florida Law our friend Katherine Stone. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. What is this, Katherine?
So again, we're talking about on-the-job accidents or injuries involving an exposure to a chemical or mold or some type of substance that then causes what we call an occupational disease. So we get a lot of phone calls about this.
Yeah.
People saying, I was exposed to mold in my job site, or I was exposed to a chemical in my job site. So an example I'll give you is recently I had a client that worked in a warehouse and was exposed to a chemical that he suffered an allergic reaction, ended up having to be treated by an ENT as a result of that.
Okay.
And so the issue with occupational exposure cases is they're extremely hard to prove.
Really?
They are the hardest cases usually in the work comp system to prove because the statute mandates that we have to be able to identify the substance, we have to be able to test the level of the substance, and we have to be able to prove that that level and that substance can cause the symptoms or the injuries that you are sustaining.
Okay.
So there has to be medical literature or epidemiology reports to back up that your exposure to that can cause your symptoms. So it's not just as easy as, hey, I see mold on the wall in my office.
Yeah.
Now I'm coughing. I've been exposed to mold.
Yeah.
It's not that simple.
And I'm glad we're talking about this because you say a lot of people think that they could be, a victim of this, and then they need to know up front what they're getting into.
Well, especially after all the flooding that we had this past year.
I didn't think of that, yeah.
You would think that most businesses have rectified that as far as mold, but again, we are getting a lot of calls with regards to that. So when it comes to like a mold exposure, we usually have to do an indoor air quality evaluation.
Yeah.
There's specialists that come in and they test the air. I don't know how it all works, but I just know what the report says. And it has to be of such a level significantly different than what you're exposed to at home or in the outside world. That's what causes it. So it's very technical to be able to get that covered.
So what would you tell somebody who's watching who is kind of debating, like, could this be tied to my sickness? Could this be tied why I went to the doctor? Do you tell them to go ahead and reach out and find out? Or
it's always best to, if they can reach out, but also go and talk to the medical doctor about that, even if it's your primary care doctor. And if the doctor can correlate it together, then that's one step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We want to keep those steps going, which means by sharing your contact information. Let's go ahead and do that right now. There it is, injuryfloridalawfirm.com. There is the phone number as well. Katherine, thanks for coming in. We appreciate seeing you today.